Masters of Ceremonies of this evening. We would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Abdullah Subani, Vice President of Folio 3 and a proud graduate of Batch 99 Karachi, to start the official proceedings with the recitation of the Holy Quran.
ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء والحين البأس أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. We go with the translation next. It is not righteousness that you turn your faces to the east and the west, but the righteousness is but they who are righteous are those who believe in Allah and the last day, and the angels, and the book, and the prophets, and who give their wealth despite loving it to their relatives, and the orphans, and to the needy, and the wayfarer. Some translate the wayfarer as the homeless. And to those who ask, and for freeing those in bonded labor, and those who establish the prayer and pay zakat, and those who fulfill their promises when they make them. And they are patient in extreme poverty, in suffering, and in battle. They are the truthful ones, and they are the ones who fear Allah.
I would now like to introduce Rida N, who will be kick-starting the fireside proceedings.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rida Malhi. We're now moving on to an exciting and the most anticipated segment of our program, which is the Fireside on Responsible Artificial Intelligence. This discussion will delve into ethical, societal, and technical implications of AI. And we're fortunate to have an esteemed panel of experts with us today. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for this session, the CEO of Agent Noon, Mr. Ali Nawab. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panelists. First up, we have Mr. Anwarul Haq, Head of Data and AI at RBC Avion. We have Dr. Faiza Khan Khattak, Applied Machine Learning Scientist at the Vector Institute from Artificial Intelligence. We have Mr. Faisal Ahmed, CTO of Naukri. Ms. Noreen Sayed, AI and Data Leader at IBM Consulting. And last but not the least, Dr. Muhammad Umar, Principal Scientist at Cognitive Systems Corporation. We look forward to an enlightening and engaging session. Over to you, Ali.
We're going to try to do this panel a little differently, so I'm going to stand here and sit. And thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the organizers. This is really an esteemed panel. And I want to start this by telling you why they picked me to do the moderation. Because I think I've built a career out of asking PhDs questions. And I think that's where we have an esteemed panel here with a lot of academics, we have a lot of researchers, scientists, people who are applying machine learning. And you know, the thing that I'm learning very quickly, having built a company in this space and sold it and now building another one, is that all the experts will tell you one thing, that we don't know what's going to happen, but we have some ideas of what could be. It is a rapidly changing technology that we kind of have not seen in our lives. I think it's bigger than the internet. Maybe we were too young at that time to really understand what the impact of the internet was, but it really feels like you're living through this major transformation. And our intent with this panel is to ask our colleagues here to really keep things very simple and to distill their expertise into very actionable items. There's 5 areas that we're going to talk about today. I expect every one of you to jump into one of them and maybe also do a second on the other. And as has been introduced before, the first one is, which is the topic of our talk, what is responsible AI? The second one is, how do you identify and overcome bias? The third is, what disciplines and roles are going to change? The fourth one is, how do you explain AI? What does explainability in AI means? And the fifth one is, how do humans and machines work together? We'll try to leave some time at the end for questions. But you know, with that, I will start with my first question. Please feel free to jump in and take them as they come. I think you have a microphone or two there. Okay. So on the topic of responsible AI, can we please have somebody explain it to our audience, and what does a responsible AI mean, and why is it important for building systems that are trustworthy?
Thank you so much, first of all, for having me at this event. I'm Noreen Syed. I work in data and AI and data and AI practice over at IBM Consulting. And you asked a great question, which is what is responsible AI? And I want to quickly backtrack to AI, or artificial intelligence, has really been around, and you've all been using it for a really, really long time. So when you use it on your phones today, even when you started using a calculator, anytime you're putting in an address, all those things that are really convenient for you. And that each of the organizations, if you look up any big tech, like if you want to search the terms AI principles, and then put comma Microsoft or IBM, you're going to come up with a bunch of principles that they've established. I'll distill it down to very simply the fact that artificial intelligence at its core is intelligence that is augmenting human intelligence. So really that's what it is. It's augmenting, it's making you more productive, more efficient. It is augmenting a function and capability you do today as humans. That's one. 2, things you create out of artificial intelligence, any insights, any data, really belong to the creator, because there's a question of, in responsible AI, who owns it, if AI creates it. And the third one is really, for any technology, not even AI, when it's invented and new, there should be a couple of things, which is, it shouldn't be harmful for the use of society of it, right? And it shouldn't have any biases. And it should be explainable and transparent. And I say that, and you can really over time apply that to anything that has been new and you've used it over time. Maybe the first time you used a car, maybe the first time you used a phone. Like, you know, I think a lot of this room, maybe not the young grads of FastNU, but some of the older folks can relate to when the mobile phones came out. We were all skeptical. It was whether it's secure, whether it's what will it do with my data? And so those same questions, really, they haven't changed, are the ones you're probably asking today in order to determine how to use AI.
Thank you so much. Faisal, I know you wanted to chime in on that question too, but maybe let me just tweak the question a bit. You're the CTO at a company that's using artificial intelligence all the time. How do you think about responsible AI in the context of building systems that are trustworthy?
Yeah, Noreen, thank you so much. I think that was an amazing insight. I think trust, for building trust, one of the very important pillars is transparency. AI systems, for a long time, have this notion of them not being very explainable in how they work and the results and the outcomes that they're producing. So I think it's very important for us to start working towards making them more explainable, making them more transparent, because that in turn works towards building trust with your users. It's also important that all stakeholders are understanding the AI system. And a lot of times, what we find is the experts have a good understanding of the systems, but other stakeholders do not. Like in our hiring use case, for example, if the job candidates are not trusting of the systems that the employers are using to hire them, that really affects the trust between the users. And that's where, as employers, you need to take on the responsibility of ensuring that there is explainability, you're laying out how AI is being used in the process. And also on the other end, you are doing your due diligence to making sure that, you're using AI systems that are built with diverse representations that do not have unintended biases built into them. And also you're doing continuous monitoring. Again, that's another important aspect. Continuously monitoring the impact. Again, in our use case, how does continuous monitoring, if I have to give an example, is using AI systems leading to disproportionate hires of certain subgroups? And if so, you have to investigate and rectify. So, and also sharing that, being open about that, being transparent, sharing that information contributes to building trust.
Thank you so much, Faisal. So I think what we're saying is that responsible AI is something that keeps into account who owns the data, what are the principles that govern the use of technology. I think from an applied perspective, you're also saying that it has to be explainable, you have to monitor it, you have to be really clear about where. You also mentioned bias. So I think that's where my next question is going to go, is like, you teach a machine, so like when I was getting into artificial intelligence, I was listening to a professor speak and he said, the best spam filter, like there's an AI that wanted to eliminate spam, it could also go and eliminate people. Therefore, when there are no people, there's no spam, and therefore it's like a really objective way to solve the problem completely, right? It's an extreme example, but like bias is everywhere in society, and as humans, we can reason around it, right? A system doesn't have reason pretty much. So maybe Dr. Faiza, to you, how do we identify bias, and what are approaches to overcoming bias in systems that use artificial intelligence?
Thanks for your question. So data can have different biases which can trickle down into the AI system. So there could be different kind of biases like gender bias or ethnicity bias, or there are many some kind of biases which are not as well known, like reporting bias. And on the other hand, we have linguistic bias as well. So there are multiple types of biases in like AI system models. So initially when we started, the models were more like a black box, and we did not know what's going on inside. So once we tried to deploy those models, we realized that probably they might have some biases towards certain races or certain categories or groups. So that's how it came into into attention, and people started to explore that. So I will talk about only one type of bias that is a reason for the bias. Mainly the bias comes from the data. So we have data that AI models are trained on. Usually that data comes from the general, scraping the websites and all that, and that inherently contains the bias that humans have. So when the AI models are trained on that, so sometimes that bias is even amplified through those models. Other than that, there are other kind of biases like under-representations of certain groups. So that is one of the other reasons, and I can go on. There are more reasons like labeling when we use human labelers for labeling the data. So that also introduces another kind of bias based on the background of the labelers. For identification, there are different ways. So of course, you can analyze the data and see if there are groups which are underrepresented, or similarly, we can also use bias metrics. There is no one golden metrics to quantify the bias, but there are multiple different metrics, and depending on the AI model, you can use that. And also, you can use interpretability and explainability to identify the bias. And I think you asked about bias mitigation as well.
Yes. How do we get around it, or how do we deal with it?
Yeah, so bias mitigation is something that a lot of research is currently going on, and there are one of the simpler ways to reduce the bias in data is data filtration or data augmentation, or in trying to make the data balanced. And there are other further advanced techniques also which actually change the model architecture, like model editing. So there are different ways to do that, but we are still figuring out the best possible ways for bias mitigation.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very complicated problem, right? Because we have not been able to get a bias out of society, and all the data sets have been produced by us. And these systems are only dumber when it comes to identifying bias than at least humans are. So I guess maybe, Anwar, do you want to add anything to that? But go ahead.
Sure, I have a slightly different take on the subject. So since I'm talking to predominantly a CS grad crowd, if you recall your neural networks course, the fundamental modeling of a neuron is Wx plus B, Z is equal to Wx plus B. What is the term B in that equation? It's bias. Bias is inherently baked into machine learning. Bias is inherently baked into how we think, how we interpret things. So bias in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing, and I'll give you an example. So in Canada, on average, women pay about 15% less premium on auto insurance because they cause less fatal accidents. They cause less fatal road accidents. If I train a model on that data, I will eventually get to the same conclusion that I should price insurance premium for women less than women. Is this bias or is this meaningful signal, right? So the point that I'm trying to make is that bias is a very, very context-specific problem, and trying to get rid of bias altogether is probably an exercise in futility.
It's a very good point. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Mark said, and the point that Ali made too, in terms of the bias, in some sense, is a reflection of the societal norms that we have developed so far. And so, we can't really blame bias because machine learning is just representing the empirical knowledge that we have developed as a society. But the reason that I wanted to sort of add was, I want to suggest a very simple way of mitigating the bias. It's so simple that you don't have to do anything. Basically, do nothing. And what will happen is that as society evolves and our understanding matures, maybe the data will reflect the newfound understanding, and then the machine learning will log to it and then remove the bias.
Okay.
So don't do anything.
Great. So we have the full gamut of approaches here, right? And I think the beautiful part about this conversation is you're all right. This is such an emerging space, right? I mean, like Anwar points out that bias is what makes neural networks work. Doing nothing is a strategy, right? So I think let's bring it down to like something that's really practical, and everybody at some point when they look at these artificial intelligence applications, they're thinking, what disciplines and jobs are going to, what's going to happen to them? What's going to exist? What's going to go away? How should we, and I mean, I think it's very difficult to make predictions on these things. All the people who made a business are doing that, but I guess how to think about it is kind of what I'm trying to ask everybody here. And Anwar, maybe I'll start with you this time.
So I'll probably give you an anecdote that's attributed to the founder of the Wright brothers, the people who invented flying on the airplane. And I think he was a pastor. I'm not 100% sure that it's truly his statement, but it's attributed to him. So he allegedly was asked, can man fly? And he said, if God intended man to fly, he would have given him wings. And his own sons invented the airplane. Similarly, you have such examples from IBM calling out, like, who would want a personal computer? Maybe the global demand would be 60 or 70. I might be wrong off the number.
It's 5.
5? Oh, sorry. Okay, there you go. I was overstating the estimate. The point that I'm trying to get to is that it's very hard to predict which industries or which sort of job segments would get impacted. I'm a history buff, so I'll give you an example from history. You might have heard the term Luddite in general expression, that people who don't like technology, who oppose technology. Luddites were basically people who essentially wanted the Industrial Revolution to go away from Europe. and they were trying to be militant about the whole revolution. What they did not realize was that yes, jobs were being wiped out, but at the same time, an equal or probably more number of jobs were being created in different segments. So yes, there is going to be some frictional unemployment. I think that's what you're trying to get to. Most likely in tasks that are very repetitive and classification or identification based tasks that are non-deterministic. I think those will go away fairly quickly. Programmers are in no danger at all. I can be pretty confident about that. I don't believe LLMs will take away coding jobs.
You don't believe LLMs will take away coding jobs? I hope you're right for all of our sake. But maybe Noreen, do you want to add to that? I mean,
I would start with, this is one area you should definitely do something about and not do anything, which is really embrace the AI. So there's a bit of a saying, and I think you touched on it, which is it's going to be a shift of jobs. Learn the AI. Like I would say, AI is not going to replace humans, but somebody who doesn't embrace it or doesn't undertake, if all of us, if we haven't already, don't leave this forum and then go back and do some research and learning on what is artificial intelligence. Basics, you don't need to understand what an LLM is, but just at the very basic what it is, I think that would go a long way in advancing yourselves and making sure that you're not replaced. This week I was traveling for work. I just came back from Calgary last night, and I'll give you a few examples of jobs, quote unquote, that have been replaced. Who here, when you go to the airports to check in, now walks up to a person? You normally walk up to a kiosk, you probably put in your booking reference number, scan your passport, off you go. If for some reason it flags you or you have a complicated travel situation, then you go up to the desk. So therefore you could argue that a lot of the people who used to do the flight check-ins have been replaced. There's less of them needed. The same is true if you go to the groceries and you're trying to check in, there's now self-check-in lanes in most grocery stores. However, they've also still closed some of those back and brought back the human checkouts because it was just taking too long. So that's the other key point. The replacement is not going to happen overnight, or the progression towards more automation is going to take time, it's going to take steps. We're not going to be in a world tomorrow where all some jobs are gone, new ones are created. And then the last one to the coding one. So for all the people, because there's a lot of engineering and CS grads here, I spoke to another client out in Calgary, oil and gas customer. And they're giving me examples of, I have staff that has the same sort of run books, so code, infrastructure as a code, to the deployment of applications, servers, but we could probably improve it, and we just don't have the time. So what we're thinking is we're going to get some interns in this summer, have them go to our sanctioned artificial generative AI system, put the code through it and say, how can we improve that code? Is there a new run book we should apply? And then review that code, i.e. so the developer's not really replaced, to put it into production. So that's a primary example of when you have a lot of to-dos, but there's some tasks you're just never able to get to in your day, AI can help you now start doing those. Really what it's doing is it's not replacing human intelligence, but it's elevating the power of what we can do. It's allowing you to subcontract out to AI some of the repetitive tasks, and maybe come back and just play a supervisor role. So that has immense power. It actually allows you to add more to your day, get more done with less time. And that's what AI will really help do, I think.
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to opine on that?
Just a small point here. So I think so many people nowadays are afraid of AI, that they are going to lose all their jobs. What I want to say is still AI is not at that level that just completely would not replace the human beings. I know LLMs are doing great and we have a lot of things that they can do and even think about lots of things like humans, but still they are still not there. And we should consider AI as something to support us, boost our productivity, and I think so all of these people already covered these points. So we should think that where AI and human beings can collaborate, that could be something that should be considered in this round. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Owen?
You have something to add? Okay. Yeah. No, because I was thinking if you would make the point, I was skipping. But you know, the jobs that would be replaced by AI, I want to sort of think of this question via negative one.
Yeah.
In this, and then you can invert that,
Yes.
right? So, what could never be replaced by AI? And that's where my thought was that what I would think is areas of deep expertise. You know, like, and I would start with like a camel handler. You know, a man who handles camels. You know.
Yep.
Understands the nuances of what sounds does camel listen to, when is he well behaved, you know, when does he sleep, when is his best behavior. To a microelectronic circuit designer who designs the state-of-the-art chips, who understands the nuances of the process, reliability, test. People who have deep expertise in their areas, it's very hard to replace them because the world is a complex place and they understand those nuances. So I would say deep expertise, developing deep expertise from like camel handling to integrated circuit design would be a way to combat.
That's a very good point. I think just the mental model of thinking about what AI will never replace, right? And then inverting it is a really good way to think about it. And it serves as a good mental model that can include all of the things that you are talking about. I have two questions left. I don't know how we're doing for time, so hopefully someone will flag me if we're running out. The first one is, you know, we've all used ChatGPT. You say, write me a paper on the history of FAST Institute, and it's probably going to write you like a nice little paper. Better than probably what we would write on our own. But I guess one of the areas that drives some concern is like, this is very cute, right, like a paper, but if we're figuring out what 5% of the company we need to let go, we need to have a really good rationale, we need explainability. Why did the model decide this or that? So, using kind of like some extreme cases, maybe not maybe for you, how do we think about explainability as we think about artificial intelligence? And what are again approaches to make sure that the process we're building is, obviously it can't be unbiased, but how do we make sure that it's understandable? Do you have a microphone?
Do you want to go ahead? Okay. So, I'll probably touch quickly on something you mentioned earlier, which I believe was by design. You brought in trust as opposed to responsibility. So responsibility is sort of the onus on the operator, whereas trust is the one that you're sort of, that the agent's acting upon, right? So, interpretability or explainability is one of the implied conditions of trust. However, explainability as it stands today is an approximation at best. So without getting too technical, and we have people more qualified to talk about explainability than me, but in essence, when you're trying to explain what a model is doing, you're either creating another model to approximate its decisions, or you're trying to get to its prediction using the sum of its parts. Both are again approximations. But let's look at it from the other side, and that's why I started with trust. As an individual, as I get more and more impacted by systems that have AI embedded in them, where adjudication, decisioning, my life's outcomes will be determined by things like a machine learning model, I ought to have the right to seek an explanation. And I think, Dr. Faiza, please keep me honest, I did not read the latest draft of the C27 bill, but Bill C27 envisions something like this, that you as a citizen of Canada, a resident of Canada, eventually have the right to demand an explanation if you were at the receiving end of an automated decision system. So there are multiple tools. Those tools are not that good. I'll just be very honest with you. We use some of them. We have regulatory requirements as a bank to have them in place, but they're not sort of foolproof. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe I want to just add to one more, also, but from a slightly different perspective. Maybe from the perspective of developing, when you're developing AI systems, because you know there are a lot of CS grads again here. and I'm sure some of you are working on AI systems, what sort of mindset do you go in when developing systems and making them explainable? Because when you start with the mission or the aim of ensuring that your systems need to be explainable, you will take a design philosophy that ensures that. Again, going back to when we started Naukri, we wanted to make the hiring process more fair. And let's say we just built a system that gave a simple hire, no hire decision without any further insights. That really wouldn't be fair because you can't really scrutinize that application. So when designing applications, I think it's a good place to start is start with frameworks. There are a lot of frameworks. There's a lot of frameworks becoming more formal. There are frameworks, in fact, becoming legal as well now. So, the Canadian government, for example, has the algorithmic impact assessment. So when you start thinking, when I'm building AI systems, my systems need to be evaluated against these systems, you'll start building systems that are responsible, that are transparent, and that are explainable. So staying true to frameworks, assessing them, I think really ensure that you're responsibly developing the systems.
Thank you. We're running close to time. I want to ask each of you one question that you can answer in no more than 1 or 2 sentences. Because I also want to leave it to some audience questions. And I think that, you've all talked about humans and artificial intelligence, and you can fight it or embrace it. So I guess for the audience, what is your opinion on how can humans and artificial intelligence best collaborate? Maybe Dr. Umar, I'll start with you. We'll go from this side to that side. And then at the end of it, we'll have some time for questions if we do. Please.
Yeah, so my thought would be, there is a recent controversy on Scarlett Johansson's voice that was used in hers, right? So my thought would be, the way we currently understand, you said 2 sentences. Okay. Okay, that might be...
That's my prompt.
I made it long because I couldn't make it short, right? So, basically, human in the loop is a good idea. And, the best example I can give is, you have a dictionary, right? And the machine learning that we have is currently trained on the dictionary that we have today, right? But let's say someone invents a new word tomorrow, falling in love. Love is a word in the dictionary, but someone invents a word for falling in love with Scarlett Johansson, with her. So the new word in the dictionary would need, the LLMs wouldn't know it, right? That word has to percolate through our society. People have to use it in different contexts. They have to develop a style around that word. So the usage of that word will be reflected eventually in the LLM. So I think the best way they can collaborate is humans keep doing what they are doing, finding new ways of expression in the society and otherwise, and then artificial intelligence will follow.
Thank you.
I think I would say, especially as maybe STEM folks and CS grads, and maybe even sometimes as South Asians, we have a knack for being perfectionists. And we want to get that perfect mark or the 100% here, especially when it comes to AI. Accuracy rates are actually surprisingly low. So what I would say is don't be afraid of experimenting with AI. If you have a job that has anything to do with AI, or if you're personally learning how to use AI, go ahead and try it out. What's the worst that can happen? It'll give you an outcome that was not expected. And that's the only way to embrace the change, is to try it out and then learn from it. If you make a mistake, tweak for it, right? If your models aren't giving the outputs you're expecting, tweak for it, and also expand your vision. Is it just the model, the technical aspect, or is there an emotional quotient? Do you need a more diverse team? Do you need to add perspectives to do better, to get better inclusive outcomes that cater to a wider set of audiences? That would be my takeaway, is don't be afraid of it, just try lots, and celebrate your failures.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noreen. I would say double down on what Noreen said. Here, embrace AI. AI is coming, it's there. Use it to definitely, improve your skill set, but also at the same time make yourself more effective. And one last thing I would add is, I think, again, AI is not gonna completely, it's not gonna be replacing us, you know, use it to your advantage. That's what I would say, use it to your advantage.
Thank you.
So I think so. I have two sentences. Okay. So what I would want to say is that AI, we should use it as a tool. It's not that reliable yet, and that can automate tasks, that can save our time, analyze big data. But still, we as humans have human beings. We have critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and reasoning, and common sense reasoning. But still, AI is lacking. So we should be using that as a tool and have the final decision taken by human beings. So that's why.
I was told this is going to be a technical discussion. Ali's asking philosophical questions. Ali's ascribing agency to AI. How do we collaborate with AI? Yeah, I think it's just going to be a fundamentally different economy. It's going to be a data-driven economy. So you have to be mindful of what data you're generating and what benefit are you getting for it. And if you're not looking out for your own data and sort of not mindful of it, you might get the shorter end of the stick.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have time for questions? We do? 2 questions. Okay, so any 2 people can ask questions. However, you can also ask questions of the panel after the talk is done, so it's not like they'll stop answering your questions. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Farouk. I'm working for one of the AI use cases for my company. So the dilemma that I'm facing right now is that most of the vendors that are approaching us, so with AI, definitely you know that data privacy is one of the key issues that we have at hand. So most of the vendors that are approaching us, they say that we are integrated with OpenAI LLM or some other LLM. They don't have an LLM of their own. So how can we get rid of this issue if a company is utilizing, because you don't know where, you don't know where your data is going. Once it's out of your domain, it goes to other people. In let's say SAP or some other system which is integrating with an outside LLM, you don't know what's going to happen with that. So do you have any idea? Do you have any suggestion how we can get rid of or how we can control this kind of situation?
So that's a great question. I have a hot take on this. I don't think enterprise-wide LLM-based use cases will scale unless you have open source air-gapped LLMs available. And even then it's tricky. So if you look at the amount of funding raised by AI/LLM focused startups in California alone, I think the number for the last year or so was about $27 billion. The total amount of North American spending on LLM use cases is under $1 billion. So there's a big disconnect there. I think the way forward probably is twofold. One is you have to build in-house capability and have your own LLMs in place, whether you're running it on-prem, in the cloud, hybrid, VPC, whatever your deployment pattern is, that's really up to you. The other is probably a more system-wide issue. I personally believe that proprietary LLMs are not the way to go. It's direct way to regulatory capture. Some of these larger organizations will end up owning a lot of the data, the technology that they ingest. So I don't know, if that was helpful or not, that was just how I approached the problem.
That's very helpful for me. So, okay. Does anyone want to take that? Or if you have a different take, then you can answer that question too. All right.
Yeah.
And then we'll do one more. You have to keep it short.
Okay. No, I just wanted to add, I think you made a good point. I think also deploying your own LLMs is not, there are a lot of ways to do it, and it's not as, it's not as huge a task as you would imagine. You can deploy it yourself. Models are open source, so it's, we can talk about this.
How would it transform leadership and decision making? I think there's those two things individually. I'll start with the latter. Decision making, it's already begun to augment, right? So I'll give you an example. Within my personal role within RBC, we cannot use any LLMs that are outside the RBC infrastructure. right? So, that having said that, if I ever needed, let's say, a front-end developer to develop something for me, I would go to a designer, have them drop something on Figma, pass that wireframe to my developers, they develop the front end, show me the prototype. Longer process. I don't know how to write code in React, but I used one of the internal LLMs to basically generate some very fundamental code in React to show my developer what I wanted. And the turnaround time in that whole process was cut down by about 5 times, 5x reduction in time. What that led me to do was make much faster decisions on some key product launches. One of the tools that we use to mitigate bias in RBC is called synthetic data generation, and we sort of cut down the deployment of that tool by 6 months based on this decision. So decision making, it has already started to augment. Leadership, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure it will fundamentally change how leadership is executed, for lack of a better expression, or manifested, because it's a very interpersonal, subjective, non-quantifiable attribute. And when you're asking machine learning to do something for you, you're asking it to do within a distribution of the data that you've trained it in. If you haven't captured those attributes in the data that you're trying to get it to act on, it really won't have an impact. I could be completely off target here.
Maybe one response, if there is one. Or maybe we'll do two. We'll do two, but you have to keep them short.
Okay, my short thing is something that Anwar mentioned, that the process of leadership involves making decisions, and in any problem, you have these intermediate steps that the person is going through in his thinking. And right now, those intermediate steps are not captured in the data per se. So, the technology has to advance to a level where the thought process that the leaders go through is captured, and then it will.
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
I think that was really great and sort of way to wrap up our panel. And I think what I took away from it is that AI will not replace human beings. However, a human being using AI will replace other human beings that don't use it. And I think that we're seeing that over and over again in multiple different ways. Thank you very much. Thanks for panelists.
I did. A big thank you to Ali and our panelists for the valuable time and perspectives. Our panelists will be available for networking and to answer any further questions you may have for the rest of the evening. Now, I would like to invite founder and president of FAST Alumni Canada, Mr. Rafiel Chaudhry, on stage, who has been instrumental in bringing us all together, and we are honored to have him here to officially welcome all our guests and share a few words.
So I'm actually here just to thank a few people. I'm not going to take a lot of your time. What a phenomenal start to the night. And I welcome you all officially to the 92X in the 6. First of all, give yourself a round of applause for making it to this event. Thank you so much for coming. And I want to thank all the fireside panelists. Dr. Umar, Faisal, Anwar, I was the happiest when I saw two successful women inspiring us on the stage, Dr. Faiza and Noreen, and they are actually here with their kids, so please give them a round of applause. Also, I'm deeply indebted to Ali Nawab. He's super busy and difficult to get hold of. But whenever we have requested support from him, he has always come forward to help us. Thank you, Ali. Thank you so much. Now moving to the other side, I want to thank Senator Salma Tawla Jan, who's here to support us. She's the first Pakistani-Canadian senator. Then we have MP Ikra Khalid here as well. MP Richie Verdes will actually join us shortly. And our newly elected MVP Zishan Hamid is here. And I also want to thank Trade Councillor from the Consulate General, Altamash Janjua, for being here as well.
The official awards and recognition ceremony. This is our opportunity to acknowledge and honor the incredible contribution of our panelists, sponsors, and volunteers. For this ceremony, we will be inviting Honorable MP of Mississauga, Erin Mills, Mrs. Ikra Khalid, on stage to come and share a few words.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. लगता है तुसी कुछ ध्यान नहीं पे करते पे. I said assalamu alaikum, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here today, and I'll give you 3 good reasons why. 1, it brings our community together on so many different levels. Not just on the professional level, but also on networking, on ensuring that we are taking care of each other, and highlighting the really good work that our community does. Second, STEM, or as I like to call it, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, is an amazing field for Canada. Not just here in Canada, but actually across the world. We are doing amazing things when it comes to technology, when it comes to investing in research and development. And in fact, our budget 2024 really ensures that research and development in the STEAM fields is a big part of how we are going to grow as Canada and as our community. Third, the really important thing is for us to bring the international community together. Because as Canada, we are the only country in the G7 that has trade agreements with all the other G7 nations. We are in the process right now of negotiating a trade agreement with the ASEAN nations. Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, India, China, Vietnam. All of these countries have phenomenal things to contribute. But most importantly for Canada and for Canadians are the people. So when we talk about talent, we are talking about each and every one of you who bring that talent to Canada. And what are we going to do as the government of Canada to ensure that we are utilizing your talent, that you are able to use your talent to be successful in Canada. And for that, in Budget 2024, we are ensuring that people with skilled, international trained skilled workers have the ability to be able to practice their profession here in Canada. This has been a long-standing issue, and we are tackling it head-on, and I'm very looking forward to working with our provincial and municipal counterparts to ensure that that happens. Because your talent makes Canada stronger, and we recognize that. So again, I will just say thank you so very much for having me here today. Thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing to contribute to the building, the strengthening of Canada. We have come a very long way, and yet we still have a long, long way to go. So I just want to say Jazakallah khair. Thank you, everyone, and I want to give a very special shout out to our phenomenal organizers, to the organization, to Mr. President Chaudhry Saab, and to all of the volunteers who have helped put this event together. I hope that this is going to be a continuing conversation and a continuing dialogue to ensure that we are providing the best support that we can to continue to strengthen Canada, Canadians, nationally and internationally. So thank you all for having me here today. Jazakallah khair. I said assalamu alaikum, everyone. It is so wonderful to be here today, and I'll give you 3 good reasons why. 1, it brings our community together on so many different levels. Not just on the professional level, but also on networking, on ensuring that we are taking care of each other, and highlighting the really good work that our community does. Second, STEM, or as I like to call it, STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, is an amazing field for Canada. Not just here in Canada, but actually across the world. We are doing amazing things when it comes to technology, when it comes to investing in research and development. And in fact, our budget 2024 really ensures that research and development in the STEAM fields is a big part of how we are going to grow as Canada and as our community. Third, the really important thing is for us to bring the international community together. Because as Canada, we are the only country in the G7 that has trade agreements with all the other G7 nations. We are in the process right now of negotiating a trade agreement with the ASEAN nations. Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, India, China, Vietnam, all of these countries have phenomenal things to contribute. But most importantly for Canada and for Canadians are the people. So when we talk about talent, we are talking about each and every one of you who bring that talent to Canada. And what are we going to do as the Government of Canada to ensure that we are utilizing your talent, that you are able to use your talent to be successful in Canada? And for that, in Budget 2024, we are ensuring that people with skilled, international trained skilled workers have the ability to be able to practice their profession here in Canada. This has been a long-standing issue, and we are tackling it head-on, and I'm very looking forward to working with our provincial and municipal counterparts to ensure that that happens. Because your talent makes Canada stronger, and we recognize that. So again, I will just say thank you so very much for having me here today. Thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing to contribute to the building, the strengthening of Canada. We have come a very long way, and yet we still have a long, long way to go. So I just want to say Jazakallah khair. Thank you everyone, and I want to give a very special shout out to our phenomenal organizers, to the organization, to Mr. President Chaudhry Saab, and to all of the volunteers who have helped put this event together. I hope that this is going to be a continuing conversation and a continuing dialogue to ensure that we are providing the best support that we can to continue to strengthen Canada, Canadians, nationally and internationally. So thank you all for having me here today. Jazakallah khair.
How it works. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'll keep it super short. It's a privilege and honor to be here. I've hardly been in a room with so much talent in one room. And I have to tell you, you all make the community very, very, very proud. I caught the last end of the fireside chat, and I'm happy to say I don't think ChatGPT is going to replace politicians anytime soon, so I think I'll be okay. But it's great to be here. I hope to stick around so I can meet a lot of you one-on-one. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, and let's give a big round of applause to all of our winners today. Now, Now, can we please request Richie Wilters, the MVP of Mississauga, to come on the stage to say a couple of words.
For those that don't know, so my background, I actually am a computer science graduate. So as a comp sci grad, I'm really passionate about science and technology. And I actually remember my graduating class, there was, I think out of a room of maybe 200 or 300 men, there was literally a handful of us. So I'm just really grateful for the degree that I have. So I really want to acknowledge Fast New and all that you're doing. So this university produces 50,000 graduates and incredible talented professionals who've gone around the world. So here in Canada and the US, it's really impressive to hear that there's 4,000 of you starting businesses, building teams, and you're the future of the technology. So I just want to quickly mention that in our budget 2024, we have, for those of you in the artificial intelligence space, we have set aside $2.4 billion to continue to invest in artificial intelligence. 200 million will go directly to artificial intelligence startups. So if you are in that space, good news for you, there's a lot of funds coming to continue to support our science and technology sector. But I just wanted to say, for all the awardees, I know I haven't gotten a chance to handshake all of you. Congratulations for continuing to be success, and I really want to wish you continued success in the future. So thank you for having me. Congratulations to the awardees, and I love that you continue to get together every single year. So enjoy the rest of your dinner. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the organizers as well.
Now, can we please request the first Canadian senator of Pakistani origin, Senator Salma Abdullah Jan, to come to the stage. Senator Salma has served as a senator since the last 14 years and stands for the ethnic diversity of all Canadians.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for that introduction. Those of you who don't know me, I'm originally from Mardan. Has anybody heard of the city of Mardan? So I am your Pushtun sister, and Fast New, I have to tell you, this was a judge speaking, and he asked me, will you come to our event? And when I did some research, and I said, wow, this is impressive, I have to go. So here I am, I've kept my promise, and I'm delighted to be here, and I wish all of you well. And I'm not going to talk long because I don't want to stand between you and your dinner. But I do want to mention one thing, that as chair of the Standing Committee on Human Rights, the Senate Standing Committee, in 2022, I initiated a study on Islamophobia when I found out that the most Muslim skill in a G7 country was Canada, and I was shocked. So we did that study, and alhamdulillah, it was a landmark study because nobody had done that. Now we're seeing other studies about Islamophobia coming out. But anyway, that's a conversation we'll have another day. Thank you for your love and your support. You're my strength. Without you, I'm nothing.